we'll talk a little bit more in the actual segment, but like I am seeing people lose fucking friends over this. I hate this. I really hate this. Unfortunately, we have to talk about the Wizard game. Wizard game and its turf creator J.K. Rowling. Okay, let's do this. So, if you have been on Twitter for the last week, you've probably been dealing with the exact same discourse that I have, which has been whether or not you should play Hogwarts Legacy. And not even just whether you should play Hogwarts Legacy, but whether streamers should stream it, whether it is okay to condemn people for playing it. There is a whole lot of stuff going into this entire thing. And Jesus Christ, I am so tired of it. Let's get into it. So, what is going on? If you don't know, J.K. Rowling is a TERF. I want to make that clear straight up. There are a lot of people who are unaware of this, and so if you are seeing this and you are not aware of all of the why all of this discourse is happening, then it is probably worth noting that J.K. Rowling is a TERF. TERF stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist. Essentially, it is someone who is a second wave feminist. They do not believe trans people are valid. They have a lot of shitty views. There are a lot of videos that go into the nuances of what TERFs are and their beliefs. I'm not going to go deep into that. I just want it to be made clear as we're talking about this. J.K. Rowling is a TERF. We're not talking about a good person here. I'm sorry if you're a Harry Potter fan and that wrecks you. It is what it is. But we need to get that out of the way because it is going to be the crux of all of this. So why does this matter? Well, obviously it's not good that J.K. Rowling is a TERF. We here actually do believe in trans rights. I know that's a very strange position for a trans person to have. But J.K. Rowling is a TERF, and Harry Potter is kind of tainted by that a little bit for a lot of us. Some people have tried to separate the art from the artist. There is a lot of argumentation to be done on that and why that doesn't really work, or why it does. People argue about it. I personally don't think you really can separate the art from the artist. I mean, it's been a while since I've read Harry Potter, but there was a lot of weird shit in it. I would recommend watching Sean's video on that topic. He really he goes in depth into a lot of the major issues that have always kind of existed in Harry Potter, not just connected to the transphobic stuff that J.K. Rowling's done in the last couple of years. Why does all of this matter? Why it matters is a new game was just released, Hogwarts Legacy. It is, to my understanding, and I haven't seen much footage of the gameplay itself. I've seen a couple of clips, but the game kind of looks like, honestly, it kind of looks like discount Bloodborne, but with a Harry Potter aesthetic. That's kind of what it reminds me of when I watch people play it. But yeah, so the Potterborn, true. So the game comes out, right? And people have opinions on this. A lot of people have been trying to initiate a boycott of this game, trying to advocate people don't play it, don't buy it. You shouldn't stream it. And the discourse has gotten very toxic. I want to go over a little bit some of the takes that I've seen. These were compiled by one of my partners, Poppy, compiled a bunch of tweets of like takes on this. Some of them are ones that I agree with, and some of them are ones that I don't. A lot of them I haven't really, a lot of them I haven't seen, but the ones that I have, there are some that I know I like had issues with or that I like agreed with. We're gonna go over those in a minute, but it's not fun. So let's take a look at the first bit of this. So the game comes out. Game comes out. We are discoursing over whether or not people should advocate for buying it. And my position here is you shouldn't. I don't think people should buy the game. I don't think people should be playing the game, preferably. I think that, you know, if you're a trans rights fan, like I am, it is good to tell your friends, your family, your coworkers, you know, people that you know, tell them not to buy the game. Don't get it as a gift. Don't buy it for themselves, you know, that kind of thing. I think that's fine. I don't necessarily believe that a boycott as a political tool for this game is effective. The reason for that is that you have to kind of understand, like what boycotts are for, right? Like, why are we doing this? Boycotts exist mostly to do one of a few things. You're either trying to get someone to change their position and come to your side, you're trying to damage their reputation, or you're trying to damage their bottom line. And I don't think this works broadly on either one of these, except maybe damaging reputation, potentially. The reason why it doesn't work as far as damaging J.K. Rowling's bottom line is J.K. Rowling is a billionaire. The sales that she makes from this game, like the royalties that come from this, it's pocket change. All of her wealth was built 20 years ago. I don't know if anyone realizes this, but J.K. Rowling has been extremely wealthy for a long time. No amount of like people buying this game or not buying this game is going to do anything to her bottom line. She'll make more money for sure if people buy it, but that's a drop in the bucket. Like, not buying this game is not going to hurt her. She has enough money that if no one bought this game, it would be a loss. But she's not losing anything. I have to imagine, because I'll be honest, like, I don't know the extreme nuances of how like the licensing process works, but I have to imagine J.K. Rowling's probably not going to lose money if the game flops. Not like she would if she was like directly involved, because we do realize that, right? Like, J.K. Rowling might have more of control over this game than like most creators would over their IPs, just given who she is and given her like status. But she is not going to be like losing money. It would be like Warner Brothers or whoever owns the licensing stuff, right? Whoever's licensing the game. We're not hurting J.K. Rowling's bottom line with this. Even if the boycott were successful, even if no one bought this game, if the game flopped, J.K. Rowling loses nothing, or loses virtually nothing, given how much wealth she has. And as far as like affecting her power that way, as far as her ability to, you know, not have any influence over like trans rights, over policies that get like promoted through her advocacy, not buying this game is not going to do that. like at all. As far as getting her to come over to our side, that is a pipe dream. There is no like getting her over to our side when it comes to this issue. I do believe that people can change and can change their views. I believe that people like can be brought over. I do believe that J.K. Rowling has the potential to be a better person on this. I just don't think she wants to be. I do believe at this point that this is willful. I don't think that there's anything that makes J.K. Rowling inherently a TERF. I think she has dug her heels in this far because it's beneficial for her too. And no amount of us like boycotting her shit. The trans community has been like by and large boycotting her shit for 2 or 3 years at this point. When was it? Like 2018, 2019 when she really started doing this? Like we've been boycotting her shit for a while. It's not stopped her. It's just made her more militant in it. Now, potentially we could damage her reputation with a boycott. Potentially. And I can kind of explain why. As far as the Harry Potter franchise goes, as far as it goes with people realizing that J.K. Rowling is a shitty person, this is an argument that I saw in a lot of different spaces talking about the raising awareness thing, because it seems like there's a bit of a disconnect whether or not people actually believe that this is like a raising awareness campaign. Some people seem to think that everyone just kind of knows at this point that J.K. Rowling is a TERF, that everyone's aware, and that is not true. And then a lot of people like realize that not everyone knows and don't care. And I think both of these are bad positions to hold. Problem is that not everyone is aware that J.K. Rowling is a TERF. And let's think about this for a second. Let's think about this intelligently, okay? Harry Potter is a massive media franchise. It is one of the most massive media franchises in the world. Maybe even the most. I'm not entirely certain. But I actually like looked it up today. Harry Potter has sold like the books, just the 7 books that were written, the original ones, has sold about a little over 500 million copies. Now, this obviously isn't going to take into account people who have read the books but didn't buy them, or people being gifted them, or, you know, it's not accounting for movie sales or anything like that. But think about that for a second. 500 million copies, assuming that everyone even read those books. That's what? Half of a billion? There's 8 billion people in this world. The majority of people don't know what Harry Potter is. The majority of people don't know who J.K. Rowling is. I need that to be clear to all of you. The reality here is that at best, less than 10% of the world is probably even aware of the existence of this thing, let alone aware that J.K. Rowling is a TERF. When you take into account the amount of people that actually like this franchise or have, you know, bought into it or anything, it does not surprise me at all if a lot of people don't know what's going on. I hate to break it to you, but when I say that we're terminally online, I actually like mean that. Not everyone is like glued to Twitter 24 hours a day. Sorry to everyone who's also glued to Twitter 24 hours a day, no offense. I'm right there with you. But not everyone's glued to Twitter 24 hours a day. Like, the majority of people are not going to be aware of this. Hell, I work with a lot of queer people. Like, I would say at least half of the like 60 or so people that I routinely work with are queer. To some degree. And I have had several conversations in the last couple of weeks where they didn't know. Like, I broke some of their hearts telling them, no, J.K. Rowling's a piece of shit. These are people who are in the queer community, people who show up to protests, who pay attention to laws and shit, and they didn't know. The vast majority of people probably aren't aware. And a lot of people have kind of indicated that they're aware of that fact, but they just don't care. And I think that's a mistake. I really do think it's a mistake to not care that a sizable percentage of people are just unaware of what's going on. Because people act like, okay, if you're not aware that J.K. Rowling is a TERF, if you're not aware that J.K. Rowling is a piece of shit, then that's your fault. That's not my problem. It's not my job to educate you. Not my job to teach you. And honestly, whereas I get that sentiment, I get where that comes from, I think that this is a mistake of a way to look at it, because it just pushes people who would otherwise probably be on our side away from us. And I've heard the arguments, if it takes this much prodding to get people to be on our side, then they didn't really want to be on our side to begin with. Fuck that. Sometimes people just need to be convinced. Like, it really, really, actually though, I've talked before. I've talked before in the past about how I really, really don't like the "it's not my job to educate you" line of thought, because it usually comes as very condescending, and it usually kind of ignores the fact that a lot of people just don't have access to the kind of information, and it also ignores the way that information is kind of flowing in our society nowadays. But I really honestly think that this like idea that if people don't know that J.K. Rowling's a TERF, like, that's not my problem, it's not my job to educate. No, fuck you. Fuck that. It is kind of our job to do that. I'll be real with you. What pisses me off about this, a lot of it, is we're kind of wanting to have our cake and eat it too as far as activism goes. We want to have all of the outcomes from doing activism. We don't actually want to do any of the work that goes into that. Like, I'm sorry. We do have to kind of be visible. We do have to kind of convince people and make arguments and defend ourselves. Does it suck that we have to? Yeah. Does it suck that we always have to be on our best behavior? That we always have to watch what the more moderate people are going to think of us? That we always have to put optics at the front of our mind? Yeah, that sucks. But we have to do it. It doesn't work to not do it. It only makes it worse. Especially when we don't have the majority power. You know, it'd be one thing if we weren't fighting for that power, but we are. We have to be thinking about this. So I don't think that this boycott is actually going to be all that useful when it comes to doing any of this. For damaging her reputation, could we damage her reputation? Yes. But we haven't. Not really. because we've gone about this so wrong as far as like the toxicity goes. I don't think it's helpful to go into streamers chats and just bully them for trying to play the game. I really don't think that's helpful. Do I care that you're being mean to them? Not really. Like I really don't care about the idea that people are being mean to Hassan in his chat. People are mean to Hassan all the time. You know what? Fuck it. I don't care. But I don't think it's helpful to do that. I don't think it's actually going to make us look good. Do I think that we necessarily should always have to look good? Do I think that it's wrong that people will take some of the like worst elements of our movement and use that to generalize us all? Yeah, that's wrong. I hate that we have to have this level of like self-censorship. But it's a fact of the world. And it's not something we can readily change. We have to keep this in mind. If you want something like this to work, if you want to damage J.K. Rowling's reputation by advocating a boycott, by getting people to not play it, to not stream it, to do all of this stuff, you have to be mindful about how you go about it. Otherwise, you get people on the other side out of spite. Which, based on what I am seeing, has kind of been the case. Like, the reason we're having this discourse to begin with is because so many people came into this with the most toxic attitude towards it. And I don't think that everyone who has done this has done so intentionally. I don't think that everyone who has been toxic or who has made like really, in my opinion, bad arguments with this, I don't think all of you are toxic inherently. And I don't think everyone here is a bad person. But we've got to be more careful about what we're doing. Otherwise, people aren't going to listen to us. So real quick, let's go ahead and look at some of the tweets. I've got a bunch of them pulled up. We'll go ahead and do this. Okay. So here's the first one. I'm pretty sure I saw this one. It says, using a game that supports a transphobe to raise money for a trans charity is just scraps from a table. Don't use the oppressor's tools to fight the oppressor. Play trans creators for charity. Cook a meal with your community, not beg for scraps. Now, this came from Jessie Gender. If you don't know who Jessie Gender is, she is a video essayist here on YouTube. I generally have a very positive view of her content. I think she tends to make good arguments. I think she tends to be pretty level-headed, but I do disagree with her on this. Like, I do disagree with her. There was a huge controversy here where Hassan wanted to play Hogwarts Legacy to raise money for a trans charity. And a lot of people got really fucking mad about it. Like, really fucking mad about it. It got to the point where Hassan pretty much decided to scrap the entire idea. Now, I don't think that Hassan acted very good in response to any of it. Like, I really don't think that he did. Hassan reacting negatively to criticism. Who's heard of that before? I don't think Hassan reacted well to it. But I also don't think that this argument works. Now, what is Jessie ultimately saying? She's ultimately saying that it doesn't do anything and that it is wrong to use the same... well, she says don't use the oppressor's tools to fight the oppressor. For one, in this case, I don't agree. I'm sorry. Do you realize what kind of news cycle we could have had? I'm just thinking of like all of the articles that would have been written talking about the largest streamer on Twitch raising hundreds of thousands of dollars for a trans charity using the game of a transphobe. Do you know how awesome it would have been to see that news cycle? How much attention would have gotten drawn to this? Free attention, by the way. You know, free attention where we could have one of our largest allies in front of the camera talking about trans rights. Because it would be about him. Let's be clear. We are missing out on all of that. That would have been huge. Huge for our cause. And that's not even counting the money that would have come from that. Because we're talking about Hassan here. How much money was it that Vosh raised for charity when he streamed? Those 3 charity streams? It was over like $300,000 in each stream, right? Keffel's raised a shit ton last year. Like, imagine how much Hassan would raise. Imagine how much we could be giving to trans organizations and the attention that would come from that. No, I'm sorry. This is a bad argument. Like, we're not begging for scraps. If anything, we are putting ourselves out there in a way that gives us the floor. Like, I said this in the segment last week about Trump's campaign promise. We are going to be the main characters of 2024. And the reason why that's important, the reason why it's important to understand that, is because we have an opportunity with that. It is scary as fuck that we have to be the talking point. But we have an opportunity with this. And if we fuck it up, we're ceding control of that narrative to conservatives. We really are. We cannot let that opportunity slide. We have to use the time that we're going to be given because we are going to be in the spotlight for this. We have to take control of that narrative where we can. And this was an opportunity for that. The idea that we would be using J.K. Rowling's game to raise money for the very group that J.K. Rowling pretty much spends her time exclusively talking about on Twitter. Like, let's be clear here. J.K. Rowling is not the Harry Potter author anymore. J.K. Rowling's online presence exists pretty much exclusively to shit on trans people. And we would have had so much attention if something like this were to occur. So this was the other tweet from Jesse Gender. This person says, people should not be abusive and awful in stream chats because of course, but I think it's notable that it's big news when it happens to Mr. Average McAverage person playing Harry Potter game and just Tuesday when it happens to marginalized folks for existing. Jesse says, 100% do not go out and harass streamers playing a game in the name of defending trans people. We don't use the tools of the oppressor to dismantle oppression. However, this is shit trans folks get daily for just existing, not for our choice of game that supports a hate economy. All right. I want to address this too because I have had this conversation recently. I understand that it is very frustrating that if you are trans, if you fall under the trans umbrella, you get a lot of hate just for existing in your everyday life, online, maybe at home, maybe at work, maybe just when you're shopping. If you make content, it sucks. I get it too. Hell, my Trump video got shared to 4chan. I got raided by 4chaners this week. Now, luckily, it fizzled out pretty quickly. They got bored pretty quickly when their comments started getting banned. But it happens, and it happens a lot, and it sucks. What I don't like about this argument, the idea that, yeah, obviously it's bad to harass people, but like trans people have it worse. It doesn't matter if trans people have it worse. I really hate like trying to play the tier list game of like who has the highest tier amount of harassment, because it makes it just look like we don't care. And it looks like we're trying to justify harassing people, which I get that Jesse here and the original person, Sean JS, I get that they're saying don't do this. But they're saying don't do this and then immediately saying why it's not all that bad if people are doing this. Okay, so Jesse then says, it continues to be endlessly frustrating, anger, and sadly not surprising that people continue to argue with strawman versions of trans people filtered through those who hate us, rather than actually listening to the nuances of what we have to say. Now, I didn't actually see this tweet. I'm reading this for the first time. And here's why I don't like this. It kind of reminds me of the listen to marginalized voices types that I keep seeing online that will spam people who have any kind of disagreement with any of the tactics or any of the arguments. I really think this is a bad argument. Like it legitimately, it feels like that, right? Because this is listen to trans people, correct? That's what this is. This is listen to trans voices. I am a trans voice here. I disagree with this. Who are we supposed to listen to? Are we supposed to listen to Jesse Gender, or are we supposed to listen to me? And what ends up happening when this kind of argument is made every single time is people get into the weeds over who is allowed to be listened to and who has most marginalization status. And that is toxic as fuck. Activists who are viewed as leaders within their communities always need to remember that their job is not to build their own platform, but to advocate for their communities and inspire them to keep fighting and moving forward, as well as work with other communities in solidarity. I don't actually think this is that disagreeable. I say this as someone who needs to remind myself of this. Our culture tells us to venerate ourselves and our platforms as our own accomplishments and self-importance. The best advice I was ever given was to think of myself as a fighter for my community, not a queen within it. I think this is fine for the most part. Do you get what I'm getting at, by the way? I wanted to go through this because I think listening to Jesse's thoughts here are good for going over the video in a second. Does everyone understand? All right, let's look at Jesse Gender's video. I haven't actually watched this yet. I haven't actually watched this yet. I have it on 1.5 speed. I don't know if she talks like incredibly fast. If that might be too fast. We'll find out. But I haven't watched this yet. I've heard there are some arguments that I might disagree with. So let's go ahead and let's look at this.
So I'm at an airport.
Let me know if the audio is too low, by the way.
And the lighting is poor. We'll talk about that later. But more importantly, I wanted to talk about the fact that I'm a fan of leftist streamer Hassan. I don't think he's perfect. I don't always agree with him, but I like him quite a lot, and I think he does a lot of really good work. And I think he's a good egg. I think he's a real good egg overall. But recently, because this is online, he got into a bit of drama, as happens sadly a lot with content creators. And shout out to FD Signifier's great recent video on this topic, by the way. But this drama was about how he, Hassan, wanted to play on his stream a certain wizarding game, controversial for reasons that I spoke about in a recent video, in order to raise money for transgender charities. To try to use a game that is part of a wizarding franchise that is owned by an anti-trans bigot doing active harm to trans people to fight back by doing a charity stream to try to make money for trans people, though she is directly harming. Honestly and truly, I think that is a fantastic impulse. It's a kind one, it's a caring one, it's one that shows he has a desire to do good, to help, to be kind, and to try to make change, that is his first desire. And I think that speaks all very well of him and who he is and what he tries to do with his work and his platform. And I'm sure if he did do that charity stream, that it would make a lot of money for transgender charities, which is awesome. However, there is an issue. He is a leader for many in many communities, not just the leftist community, but the streamer community and many others, including a leader for many trans people. And I see a lot of folks, including other streamers or even transgender streamers, say, oh, well, if he can play the game, then I can. And then I see other people who look up to those streamers and leaders and say, oh, if they can play it, then I can donate to trans charities and play it myself. But here's the thing. Now that everyone here has bought and played the trans folks game and gave it more money and attention and validity, that's what you've used your platforms to do, to give validity to this game, to say it is okay. It makes her relevant. It makes her platform and franchise relevant.
Okay, so to start off, yeah, Penelope, this is a slippery slope. It's also, I find it, I think it kind of misunderstands how this whole entire system works too. Like, I see where she's coming from. Like, obviously she thinks that the idea itself is it's made in a good, it's made in good faith, right? So when I'm like upset at the people who are like writing off the idea like as a concept entirely, I at least based on what she says here, she's not writing off the idea entirely in concept. Her issues with it is what she thinks the effect of it will be. My problem with this argument is I think that it kind of misunderstands how the attention works from it. Because the problem is Harry Potter is a global franchise. Like, we're not going to make it more relevant than it already is. Like, we're not going to make Harry Potter more relevant than it already is. I know that I just like talked about how like the majority of people don't know what Harry Potter is, but you have to consider this franchise is 20 years old at this point. We're not drawing like that much new attention to it. What we are drawing attention to is the controversy that we're causing with it. And that's part of the culture war. But no, I don't agree with. I don't think that that simply playing the game to donate money to charity is going to lead to that. The other thing is what she's doing is she's assuming that there is any kind of like equivalence between Hassan streaming the game and fundraising thousands of dollars for, let's say, like the Trevor Project or like some other like trans organization, and like me buying the game and saying, oh, I can like ease my conscience by giving $60 to this organization. Those aren't the same thing. Those are not the same concept at all. One of those is like I said, it's an intentional like fundraising thing. The other one is somebody buying the game and then feeling guilty about it. What Hassan would be doing would be raising money for trans charities. What you're doing by buying the game and then, you know, donating money, you're just trying to ease your conscience with that. Like, those aren't the same thing. I think this is a false equivalence in not just like the concept of the actions, but just like in the scope of what they do. Because if Hassan plays the game, right? If Hassan plays the game and raises money for trans charities, like I said, that turns into media attention. That turns into an opportunity for Hassan to speak on trans issues. That's not what you're doing if you're like buying the game and then giving like $70 to whatever.
And allows her to keep justifying and causing harm to the transgender community. And also keeps telling the people in charge of this franchise that yes, they can still keep making stuff within it and make money.
But they're doing that anyway. They're gonna do that anyway. Like, J.K. Rowling doesn't need to sell more video games in order to keep doing it. J.K. Rowling hasn't been the face of Harry Potter for years. Her Twitter exists exclusively to shit on trans people. Like, Hassan playing the game in order to like that's not what's going to happen.
While she's still doing her horrible
Because J.K. Rowling can just keep doing it. Like, she's going to keep doing it regardless.
stuff. And I'm not just talking about generally in our culture today, but I'm saying that this is happening within our own spaces that are supposed to be directly transgender supportive. Yes, the world sucks. Yes, it's breaking streaming records, and that sucks. But it doesn't mean that we have to replicate that economy within our own spaces that are supposed to be safe for trans people. It supports her economy, not ours, not the marginalized, not transgender people's, and it normalizes in everyday discussions and discourses.
Except, wait, no. It actually does, like, help us. Like I said, there's the media attention that comes with raising that much money for the trans community. First of all, there's also the fact that, like, that money is not going to us otherwise. Like, J.K. Rowling's going to be a billionaire whether people buy this game or not. But whether or not we can fundraise money does depend on whether like we're fundraising appropriately. Hassan doing a trans charity stream is obviously going to get more attention than, say, I do a trans charity stream. But Hassan doing a trans charity stream with J.K. Rowling's game gets more attention. That's money we wouldn't be getting otherwise. Like, it actively does benefit us.
Keeping her and her platform in our attention, in our mind, in our culture, and we need to not do that. We don't use the tools of the oppressor to take down the oppressor. I'm not saying we're going to be able to take down the oppressor today, but playing that game is playing on her and transphobic terms. This is what I and others talk about when we say don't play the wizarding game. It's not that you are a bad person or a bigot if you do, but what it's doing is not actually supporting trans people, and it's not being an active ally or accomplice to the transgender community, even if you do use it to try to do good things. We fight on our terms, not theirs. And a lot of people...
The problem with this argument is that in this case, like, we're not able to fight on our terms. Right? Like, and in this case, we have to consider what tools are being used against us. She keeps repeating the don't use the tools of the oppressed, or the tools of the oppressor to fight them. Like, she keeps using that quote. I don't see how that fits here. At all. What the hell is our terms anyway? What she's getting at is that, like, society is transphobic and we need to like fight outside of transphobic restrictions. The problem is that, like, we can't accomplish that. We don't have enough power to do that. We have to work within, like, our own. We have to work within our, like, the confines that we have. Otherwise, we can't build the power that we need in order to not use the tools of the oppressor.
People said this to Hassan, and good on him, he decided not to do the stream, which I think is a correct thing, but a few things have happened in the discourse after that fact. First, people have said Hassan was bullied.
Okay, let's see what Keffel said. It's really embarrassing that people decided to bully Hassan into not streaming the Wizard game for charity when the material harm from playing the game is practically nil, and there is now no money being raised for trans people who desperately need it. This is true, based, correct. Keffels is right. I'm sorry. Sorry, go fuck yourself. Keffels is right. Again, we're talking about money that's not going to us otherwise. And as Keffels correctly pointed out, the material harm from playing the game is nil. Like, J.K. Rowling is not going to get more power from Hassan playing the game. What it does do is gives us more of a platform to fight her ideas publicly.
Bullied into not playing the game by transgender people. I'm sure many people were assholes to Hassan during this, some of them quite possibly being trans, and wanted to react vitriolically at him for his initial impulse to play the transphobic game to help trans people. And that really sucks, because his intention was good. Don't harass streamers for playing the game. His intent was a good one, his hope was an earnest one, his desire was a good one. We don't use the tools of the oppressor to fight oppression. Oppressors harass. Oppressors view things in binary and essentialist terms and want to create antagonism. And they want us to do the exact same thing to each other. While we fight oppressors, while not harassing them, we We don't do that to each other. We create dialogues. We work with our community and between communities in kindness.
I mean, we're not doing that. This whole discourse, like, we're not doing that, by the way. Like, I have seen over the last week. we absolutely are harassing each other over this. He's misquoting Black feminist Audre Lorde. The Master's tools will never dismantle the Master's house. They may allow us to temporarily beat him in his own game. They will never enable us to bring about genuine change. Racism and homophobia are real conditions of all of our lives in this place and time. I urge each one of us here to reach down into that deep place of knowledge inside herself and touch that terror and loathing of any difference that lives here. See whose face it wears. Then the personal as the political can begin to illuminate all our choices. About using white privilege to fight racism, this isn't relevant to this discourse. True.
And don't essentialize one's actions, but create meaningful conversations with each other based on the understanding that we are imperfect people imperfectly fighting a horrid system that hurts us all. Also, by framing the discussion as if trans people bullied him by saying that that was the overriding thing, which may even be completely true, it's ignoring the valid critiques that were being made, like the ones that I hopefully articulated earlier. And it frames the discussion in terms of building a resentment against the marginalized, against trans people. It frames trans people as the aggressors in this entire situation, as if we're the hateful, hurtful ones, when in actuality, we're the ones being harmed in all of this.
Okay. For starters, both can be true, right? Like, we can be the ones being harmed. We can also be doing like bad things. That, like, we're not framing this in trans people are bullying streamers. The framing is that a bunch of people within the trans community are being toxic and vitriolic and doing something that's ineffective. Like, it misses the point. Yeah, valid critiques.
In fact, it's also very important to point out that one of the biggest right-wing disinformation campaigns about transgender people is that we're all bullies trying to control what you say or do.
And they canceled it because she said in an interview, and this is not exactly what she said, but effectually, she said, gender was a fact. And then the trans community got mad as they started calling her a TERF. I didn't even know what that was. But I know that trans people make up words to win arguments.
The way that you can tell who holds all the power in a society is by who you can't make fun of, right?
That's right. So his speech is violence, their violence is speech. See how that works? What's interesting is that the number of people who really care about this issue enough to assault someone over it is tiny, and yet they have disproportionate power. 350 million people in the country, maybe 1,100 feel that way, but they're running everything. Why is that?
Most trans people are just saying this casually and trying to be reasonable, like I hopefully am trying to be myself. And yet the narrative always focuses on the loudest, most vitriolic voices in order to create a narrative around trans people. Now, I'm not saying that this is what Hassan is intentionally doing, but constantly framing trans people as bullies who are coming to attack you ultimately.
This also kind of ignores the issues with this discourse, right? Like, yeah, I will take her at her word here that the majority of people are not being vitriolic. I'm sure that's probably true. The problem is when you are being dogpiled on the internet, you are not able to separate out the reasonable people from the vitriolic people. It's impossible. Your brain is incapable of doing it. And especially if you're somebody with as large of a following as Hassan, if you have like thousands of people going into your chat, some of them are going to be like reasonable, some of them are going to be vitriolic, some of them are going to tote that line. Your brain isn't going to be able to separate them. Everything is going to look like the worst of the worst. Which is why it's important to not engage in this kind of behavior, because it does make us look bad, and it does lead to this kind of an issue, right?
Supports framing trans people as harassers and bullies, which ultimately feeds into the right-wing narrative around transgender people that frames us as the aggressors when really we are the ones being victimized. And by the way,
okay, she keeps saying this, that like it's using right-wing narratives. I don't know that I buy that. I don't know that I buy that it's like enabling right-wing narratives for us to call out people being toxic in communities in order to bully people into not playing the game. I don't know that I buy that. I'm sorry.
I'm not saying that Hassan is contributing to this narrative intentionally, but certain people are taking it that way. Just like right-wing folks are currently using the fact that one streamer started crying after some mild pushback from her community about her playing Hogwarts Legacy, using it as the transes are bullying you. Also, these discourses make it about individuals, the person who's being bullied by the transes, instead of about the actual trans community, the entire group of people that is being harmed. It also forgets that trans people are harassed like this on the daily, just for being trans online.
I'm not saying all trans people are acting perfectly in all this. Some trans people may be angry and vitriolic towards Hassan and others, and that sucks. It is awful, and we shouldn't be doing it. No one should be doing it. But a lot of trans people are hurting right now. We're imperfect people fighting a horrid system imperfectly. That's not to forgive them. It's not to say it's okay. But it's the understanding that we have to have when you have a marginalized group being attacked.
And I know the criticism to
I'm sorry, what? Hang on, I need to hear that line again.
the entire group of people that is being harmed. It also forgets that trans people are harassed like this on the daily, just for being trans online.
I'm not saying all trans people are acting perfectly in all this. Some trans people may be angry and vitriolic towards Hassan and others, and that sucks. It is awful, and we shouldn't be doing it. No one should be doing it. But a lot of trans people are hurting right now. We're imperfect people fighting a horrid system imperfectly. That's not to forgive them. It's not to say it's okay. But it's the understanding that we have to have when you have a marginalized group being attacked.
And I know
Okay, there is a level of truth to the fact that you have to understand that like people will lash out when they're feeling hurt, but like that is not a justification. I am so sorry. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you know, we can be offended that Hassan wants to play the game in order to raise money. That does not justify what they're doing. And I know she said that like oh, that's not like justifying it, but like this is still soft support. It's still saying I don't think what they're doing is all that bad.
the criticism to this video will be, well, if he plays Hogwarts Legacy, then maybe people who might be watching an anti-trans streamer might watch him instead. But my argument back to that would be, instead of worrying about continual endless growth in a very capitalistic sort of mindset, why not worry about modeling how to fight for trans people and platform trans people to your audience? Be a champion to the audience.
What? That's entirely irrelevant. We're not talking about endless growth. We're talking about attention. Like, come on. Jesse is smart enough to know this, by the way. Like, we're not talking about endless growth like in capital. We're talking about what is effective in fighting for trans rights. What? No, like I said, what comes from this is not, we're not talking, oh God. This entire argument just like actually broke my brain. I'm so sorry. No, we're not talking about endless growth in a capitalist system. We are talking about fighting for like attention. Hassan streaming this game gives us attention. Again, I point to the fact that the largest streamer on Twitch would be streaming for charity, raising probably hundreds of thousands of dollars using the game of a turf out of spite. That's media attention. That gives him the floor. That's free attention for us. And Jessie just made this argument in reverse, by the way. She just went on about how putting the game in front of people is just going to give more relevance to J.K. Rowling, which, by the way, doubt. But what it does do is it gives us relevance. We're the ones put in the spotlight because we're the ones doing it.
You already have. And hey, who knows, maybe by taking a stand, doing something different than the already tons of other people playing Hogwarts Legacy on the platform, you'll make your audience grow anyways, by being someone different, by showing them a different way.
Again, this is a complete misunderstanding. It's not about making your audience grow. It's about driving attention towards the issue. We went from talking about like a trans like charity stream to just talking about streaming in general. What?
Way forward. That's positive and helpful.
But second, I also hear now that Hassan is not going to do anything. He's not going to do a trans charity stream. At least that's what I know at the time of this filming. Maybe that's changed. He's not going to play any game or talk about transgender issues during this time. But we don't, as activists, do things because people were dicks or because things are awful all the time. We don't be reactive. We be proactive. And being proactive means realizing you don't need the wizard game to do a transgender charity stream. You can just do a transgender charity stream. The wonderful video essayist Jacob Geller did one actually late last year playing sword video games and raised thousands of dollars. Hell, the most effective trans charity stream that I'm personally aware of was of Donkey Kong 64, a game that is decades old at
Because it was H Bomber Guy. Not because it was... What?
this point. You can just do a transgender charity stream. You don't need to play any specific game. In fact,
No, you don't need to play any specific game, but part of that comes from the media attention. Again, this is misunderstanding the point of doing the stream. Like, no, does Hassan necessarily need to play Hogwarts Legacy? No, he could play any game. It's Hassan. He will get the views and he will get the money raised. But he will get far more attention and far more money raised. No, this is like social media campaigning. Is what we're talking about here.
Better, you can support not only a transgender charity stream, but a transgender artist at the same time. You can use your platform to play a game by a transgender person that others may not even have heard of. For example, Celeste comes to mind. Tell Me Why also is a game that has transgender artists and actors within it. Bloodborne PSX, the indie free Bloodborne PS1 demake, is even better too. Give attention to the indie creator of Bloodborne PSX, who is a transgender woman who made that game out of a passion and desire to learn to be a better creator and who wants to go on to do more cool projects beyond just Bloodborne demakes. And I honestly, by the way, recommend No Clip Gaming's wonderful documentary about her, by the way. Imagine if Hassan, one of the biggest streamers out there right now, streamed her game while doing a trans charity stream. Gave her attention and inspired other streamers to do the same.
And again, I'm not saying that like Hassan shouldn't do any of this stuff. No, absolutely. Stream the game. Stream those games. Give attention to those like creators. Give money to them. But this is missing the point. We're talking about what is effective in fighting against J.K. Rowling's tactics. And part of the way that J.K. Rowling gets attention is through her media apparatus. When J.K. Rowling speaks, it becomes something that people listen to. This is missing the point.
Would it be better numbers than the Wizard game numbers? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not. But it would be doing things on our terms. Imagine Hassan streaming that game.
Okay, but that means it's not going to work as well. We're sacrificing effectiveness to make ourselves feel better for like 30 seconds. She's literally covered by mainstream news fairly often in the UK. Yeah, true. Like she admits it here, by the way.
Gave her attention and inspired other streamers to do the same. Would it be better numbers than the Wizard game numbers? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not. But it would be doing things on our terms.
Again, we're just sacrificing effectiveness at the cost of like making ourselves feel better a little bit. Like, I'm sorry. I don't care if it like necessarily feels good to play the game. What I want is for J.K. Rowling to stop having as much power or attention. And how do we do that? We beat her. Not physically, of course. I'm not advocating for violence. What I mean is we take that attention away from her. That's what this does.
Imagine Hassan streaming that game. It might help change the course of her career completely in a positive way. It would enable her and help a transgender creator be able to make more wonderful, beautiful things and put those beautiful things out in the world for
we can do both.
Other trans people to resonate with and other people who aren't trans to find and discover and see what trans people can do. And I want to see those things that she can make, what she has to say. And all of that would be done while doing a charity stream for trans people. But maybe some of you out there are like, look, those games are awesome, but they're too small. The Wizard game is trending right now and relevant. Twitch will eat that up. We need to play a trending game. And okay, if that's your argument, I got you there too. Play Last of Us Part 2. That's a video game that is relevant right now because of the, I think, record-breaking HBO TV show. It's a video game that stars numerous queer actors and characters, including a transgender one played by Star Trek's own Ian Alexander, who is boss, by the way.
Again, we're talking about effectiveness here. Like, I actually don't think that this is a bad idea in concept. Play The Last of Us. Raise money for like charity streams. Play the first game, play the second game. Raise money for trans charities. Do that. Like, you can do that, but I don't think it's as effective as the idea of, while we're having a trending topic of the Harry Potter game, playing the Harry Potter game to spite the creator and raise a shit ton of money for them.
Especially in that game. And the game was also made with several trans developers behind the scenes, including at least one that I know of in a lead developer role. And there might be more. And that's not even to mention that the TV show that is relevant right now stars Bella Ramsey, who is non-binary, and Pedro Pascal, who is one of the most adorable human beings of all freaking time, and also a vocal ally to the trans community, who himself has a transgender family member. Play that game. It's just as trending and relevant as the, Wizarding one. Right now, as I said, I'm in an airport, and sorry for the terrible noise and weird cuts because the speakers have been coming on. But the reason I'm here is because I'm traveling to Los Angeles to visit the Star Trek Picard premiere that I was very kindly asked to attend by the creators behind the show with my fellow queer creator and Trekkie, Sean Farrick, and others. Shout out to Trek Culture, by the way, for being amazing. And as I said, I was invited here by the creators of Star Trek, who I know for a fact donated to transgender charities and didn't play the Wizard game. I saw online one of the producers of Star Trek Lower Decks, my favorite Star Trek show right now, tweeted out about it because he fucking rocks. And it showcases to me that there are big franchises and creators working within them, and creators big and small, both within franchises, within big multimedia corporations and without, run by people who want to care and fight with the vulnerable. Support those people. And if you want to say, oh, support the devs of the Wizarding game, I talked about that in my big video. You see, the trick of our capitalistic attention economy is making you think you have to use where the attention already is to get anything done. To beg for scraps from someone else's table because
it's not begging for scraps. And yes, you kind of do have to use trending topics in order to get a foot in the door. Like that is how the attention economy works.
they have the Eye of Sauron of the cultural discourse on them. But we don't have to play that game. We, as activists, we create our own attention. We can't take down the Wizarding franchise, at least not right now. We can't take down the person who created it. It's not going to happen today. But the basis on which we build the chance to actually do that down the line does start today with our actions, what we create right now. And to do that, we create and fight on our terms. We cook our own meal with our community and others. We don't beg for leftovers from those who harm us. This isn't about a boycott of the Wizarding game. I'm not here for a boycott. I said as much in my last video. That's the wrong way to think about this. What this actually is about is creating our own future. Creating our own systems outside of these attention economy things. Making our own attention. Creating something stronger to build upon that works for us. Making opportunities for those who didn't have it before. And don't give more to those who already have too much. This isn't a lesson we should take away just in this situation. It's what we should remember always. If this video was just about this Hassan moment, I wouldn't have made this video. This is a goal we need to work towards always. We build on our own terms. We build our own systems of support. Oh, and by the way, this same argument goes for the trans character in the Wizarding game. Her name is Sirona. Sir-Ona. I see the developers are going to the same school of naming that gave us the wonderful Kingsley Shacklebolt. The character is a tokenizing, oh, I have a fictional trans best friend nonsense meant to trick you and others into saying all of this is okay. That you can use their tools and make people think they're being allies by supporting an economy based on hate. I spent the last few days getting told Avada Kedavra by bigots in my DMs and comments online. People calling me mudblood. People dehumanizing me. People telling me to kill myself using Wizarding avatars. The Wizard franchise, while an oppressor doing active harm owns and controls it, sadly can't be reclaimed. It is a tool for them. It is their terms now, their language now. Let's not try to claim their tools to fight them. Let's make our own and share them with each other. Oh, and speaking of which, the download link to Bloodborne PSX is in the down below.
Okay, cool. I don't know if she's going to say anything else, but I don't. Okay. Again, all of this is like irrelevant to the reasons why something like this was a good idea in the first place, or why this was like an idea in the first place. Did she do her own fundraiser with whatever game she wishes? I have no idea. I don't fully agree with that take about Harry Potter not being able to be reclaimed, but sigh. Yeah, I don't exactly know how I feel on that front, but I'm going to say this. The issue that I have with this video is that it entirely misses the point. It entirely misses the point. And by the way, Jessie Gender is smart. Like, she knows that it would be like good for attention to do this. She said as much. Like, she knows that it would be more like of an attention grabber to use the Wizard game than it would be to use any of those other games. Yeah, no, this video just misses the point. Okay. To some of her points, let's take a look. First things first, Hogwarts Legacy breaks record before official release despite controversy. Hogwarts Legacy is dominating Twitch. Hogwarts Legacy, amid J.K. Rowling controversy, charts record-breaking PC release. I want to show those off for one reason. And by the way, she did address this, but it's worth pointing out. These fucking, like, this fucking game is already, like, breaking records. Like, it's already popular. And that was the other thing that I wanted to touch on. I don't know exactly how much longer I have in me with this whole subject. That was the other thing that I wanted to touch on. Is the fact that I kind of feel like the controversy was kind of co-created on our part. Like, this game was announced a while ago. And if you were in the trans community, you probably heard of it. But I will tell you this. The majority of people did not know this game existed until now. The majority of people did not know that the game existed until, close to its official release. But you know who did know? We did, because we were paying attention, and we've been talking about boycotting it for forever. In some ways, I do kind of feel like we've kind of co-created the controversy, where, to my understanding, this game's not really that good. Like, just from what I've heard, people who have played it have talked about it, like that it's not good. It's not a great game. And if that's the case, I'm fairly confident in saying that if we would have just left shit alone, this game would have come out, it would have barely gotten any sales, and it would have flopped, and nobody would have known anything about it. We wouldn't have had any discourse over it. But because we keep militantly talking about it, we're drawing attention to it. A lot of the attention that's come to the game has come because we're talking about it, because we're making the arguments against buying it. I saw it being played. It's okay. How many 2000s games were okay? Okay, yeah. I mean, like I said, it just kind of looks like discount Bloodborne, but with magic to me. But we're so afraid of indifference within our community that we end up harming ourselves. True. No, the thing is would have ended up the same way as Fantastic Beasts. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to bring up. Think about Fantastic Beasts. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. The what was it? Did they just release the third one? I don't even know, because I only remember the first one coming out. I forgot that they had a second one until this year. Trilogy? Okay. Yeah, I forgot that those movies even existed because no one cared. The third one was released. Yeah, no one cares. Because no one's talking about them. But you know what would have happened if we would have made a big stink like this, and we would have, made a huge boycott and started going out to theaters and yelling at people who wanted to go watch. I'm sorry. We would be causing way more controversy than we're actually having right now. And I think that's what's happening here. I think this game would have fizzled out. It would have gotten barely any attention, and J.K. Rowling would have made a little bit of money, but not that much. Not as much as she's going to now. But no, we had to talk about it. We had to make it a big thing, and we had to start harassing people over it and start infighting over it. I think, by the way, I fully realize here that people are going to hear what I just said, and they're going to say that I'm saying that we are responsible for our own oppression, and that is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we kind of co-created the drama by talking about it. This game wouldn't have nearly as much attention if we weren't being so militant against it. It would have just fizzled out. So how do we reach people in the community and work towards better strategies with these sorts of things? I'm glad you asked. For one, like I said earlier, I really don't like the "it's not my job to educate you" type of logic, because I really think that it leads us to not giving a shit about whether or not people are on our side. Because the fact of the matter is, to some degree, it is our job to educate people. We are the ones fighting for this. Sorry, people have to be convinced. The way that we need to reach people in the community, for one, we've got to stop moralizing everything. We've got to stop this telling people that they are bad people for being Harry Potter fans. Some people just don't know. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't like, I'm going to take these off. Don't get me wrong. I don't like seeing people read Harry Potter. I have family members that are huge Harry Potter fans. I was a Harry Potter fan when I grew up. I grew up reading those books, went to see the movies in theaters, got the books on release, like the whole nine. When Deathly Hallows came out, I read that thing in like 2 days. And I have family members that are into Harry Potter. Family members that, to my knowledge, are trans affirming. Have never misgendered me, have never dead named me. They are trans supportive. I've seen them at least signal support. Do I like seeing them play Harry Potter? No, but they're clearly not bad people. Like, they have, unjustly, in my opinion, tried to separate the art from the artist. And honestly, I don't care. I really don't. Do I think it's necessarily good? Do I like it? Does it make me a little bit uncomfortable? Yeah, it makes me a little uncomfortable. I don't like seeing Harry Potter stuff. I actively avoid conversations about Harry Potter. But it's not worth my time getting into arguments over whether or not this person's being moral by what, sharing Harry Potter memes on Tumblr? Michael Brooks talked about how we have to stop moralizing so many things. We have to definitely be better about how we approach people and what we see as like bad. Yeah, that's true. Like we have to be we do have to be better on that. It really is the case that the moralizing is just drawing people away because it makes us seem antagonistic. I think if the argument was only, it makes me uncomfortable that you're playing that, consider we both know JK's history, then this wouldn't be this huge issue. Yeah. No, and that's a better way to go about it, by the way. Like, I think it's fine to tell people that you're uncomfortable with them playing it. I don't necessarily think that's like a bad thing. You can say, hey, I think this makes me a little bit uncomfortable considering that, J.K. Rowling's a TERF. But I don't necessarily think that somebody's a bad person, like, because of them, like, liking Harry Potter or playing the game. And the other thing that we can do is we can get ourselves at the front of the conversation. The thing is this is going to happen whether we like it or not. We're not going to be able to control the fact that we are the hot topic of discussion right now, but what we can do is do what we can with it. We have an opportunity to make our voices like the forefront of this, to get people who are allies, who have speaking power and influence and money, to speak on these issues. Hassan streaming this would have been a good thing. I really hope that people are understanding what I'm saying, because when I made this take on Twitter, by the way, I lost followers. And a lot of people took what I was saying to mean that I'm saying it's good to buy the game, or that you should advocate playing it, or that I don't, or that I like that people are playing it. I don't. I just want us to do what's effective. If you're made into a jester, make everyone else look like a fool. True. Like, whether we like it or not, we're going to be at the forefront of the conversation. Now, what we do with that attention is up to us. And I don't think it's helpful for us to continue to shame people and go into streamers' chats and harass them, or to get into interpersonal conflicts with each other, losing friends, losing acquaintances, when what we could be doing is we could be taking the attention that we're being given and making ourselves heard. If we're going to be in the spotlight, use the microphone you're given. Now, I'm not saying that Harry Potter is good. I'm not saying that Harry Potter is a franchise necessarily worth saving. My issue here is not with Harry Potter. It's about what we can do. And I think we're being really ineffective on this. I saw pictures of tweets sending Keffels death threats for the possibility of streaming it. They can't all be bad. Yeah. See, this is the other thing too. Like, another thing that I noticed that Jessie Gender did, like in her tweets and in that video, is she kind of downplayed the severity of some of like the harassment. And again, I'm willing to take her word that the majority of people weren't harassing everyone. That's usually the nature of dogpiling. But the way she frames it is almost like we were just dealing with kind of low level of harassment. And no, there were a ton of death threats. Like, people did that with the Vosh thing too, with that lesbian joke from a couple of weeks ago. Like, people were acting as if like, oh yeah, Vosh faces harassment, but it wasn't that bad. I read those tweets. Like, there were tons of just straight up death threats. I can only imagine what Hassan and Keffels are getting over this. I also don't think it helps for us to infight and argue to the point of absolute exhaustion either. Yeah, no, it's not. All of this time that we're spending infighting, all of this time that we're spending talking about this stupid shit is time that we're not like using to actually like do what we can. Like I said, the problem with what Jessie Gender said was she acted like Hassan streaming the game was giving attention to J.K. Rowling, which is not what it would be doing. It would be giving attention to us, framed around going up against J.K. Rowling, who already gets attention. And every moment that we're spending arguing whether or not that's a good idea is moments that Hassan doesn't have to advocate and to raise money, because now he's not. Okay, we've been on this for a while. The reason why this discourse has pissed me off so much, it's not because I think anyone is necessarily a bad person for disagreeing with me on this. I think that the toxicity has come from the way we're engaging. As far as a boycott goes, it's not going to be effective. We're not going to be able to achieve the goals that we're achieving. At this point, we're just doing it because it makes us feel better. And like, fine, boycott the series. I don't buy anything Harry Potter related. I refuse to. I tell people that are around me, don't buy Harry Potter stuff. I think that's fine. But I don't think it's going to actually do any kind of difference in what J.K. Rowling is capable of advocating for. We're not going to be able to hurt her bottom line. We're not going to be able to bring her over. And as far as hurting her reputation, that only works if we do it effectively. And I don't think we've engaged with this effectively. Now, as far as the should streamers play the game thing goes, I just want to be clear, I don't care. I don't care if streamers are playing this, because I don't think the material like benefit that J.K. Rowling is going to get is going to outweigh any of the benefit that we would get from them not. Like, I literally don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. If we wouldn't have made such of a deal about this whole thing to begin with, we probably wouldn't be seeing this much controversy anyway. It probably wouldn't have been as big as it is. And as far as the charity stream thing, I'm sorry, I think Jessie Gender is wrong. I think that she misses the point. It's not about this like capitalistic notion of growth or whatever. It's about we have an opportunity to put ourselves in control of this narrative. Hassan streaming the game gives him an insane amount of attention. The news cycle that comes from the largest Twitch streamer on the platform streaming for charity, for a trans charity, the Wizard game, to spite the turf that created it. I'm sorry. That is beneficial to us. That's not using the tools of the oppressor to save the oppressed, or whatever it was that Jessie Gender keeps misquoting. What it is using what we have available to us to get as much attention as we can, to drive people to materially benefit our side. That's money that's not going to us otherwise. And it's attention that we're not getting otherwise, or attention that gets to be framed in a different way because we're not in control of it. So yeah, that's really all I've got to say on the subject. I'm just going to cut this here. And I will see you all next time.